Good morning, guys. Unfrequented world, and today I want to touch base on another alpha lens that I just purchased and kind of do a quick and dirty review. Just to remind you guys that now is probably one of the best times ever to be a Sony alpha shooter. Everybody is jumping ship and going to E-mount, and I myself have as well. I do own an A7R III. However, I still shoot the A77 II and the A99. And I've kind of made it a practice to only buy lenses that I can use on all three cameras. That being said, I saw a fantastic deal on the Sigma 7200 OS EX DG version. This is probably a 2010 model, I think it is. So it's about 8 years old. $600, guys, online, used. And there's a few copies floating around in that range. Excellent shape. This one has nothing wrong with it. And I checked at Henry's here in Canada. This lens, as of last week, was still selling for $13.99 plus tax. Now, they have come out with the new model, the Sport model, so expect those prices to drop. I find Henry's a little crazy in their pricing anyway, but $600 used. And this lens, I'm fairly familiar with the Sigma 7200. I do own the previous version, the EX version. This is the previous model right here, guys. Actually, this is two models back because they came out with the HSM version. This is still the screw drive, and it didn't have the digital coating. So I thought, well, it's time to upgrade this. Much like we did with the macro lens the previous week, I just couldn't pass up these deals. When the prices are that good, guys, you got to jump on them. As you can see, the new lens is roughly the same size because we've got the LA-EA3 adapter on here. So it is a little heavier than the previous versions because it has the optical stabilizer in it. And for Sony users, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I did a bunch of shooting tests. You're better off to use the image stabilization right in our cameras. I could shoot down to about 1/40th of a second at 200 millimeters with the Sigma OS. And I could get down to, well, I'm a pretty steady guy, and I could get down to 1/10th of a second with a fairly decent keeper rate using the in-body stabilization. So this lens works flawlessly on the A99 and on the A77 II. When I threw it on the A7R III, I was using the LA-EA3 adapter, which allows full touch screen. So if you're doing any kind of video, you can pull focus, things like that. And I noticed that there is an issue with the LA-EA3, and that was that when I tried to close focus the lens down to its closest focusing point, which is 1.4 meters, if I tried to focus on something closer than that, the lens would lock up. Then I realized that the fix was quite simple. If I just nudge the manual focus ring, just move it a little tiny bit, then the HSM motor would kick in and it would start going again. Now that is completely an adapter issue. It's a compatibility issue with that adapter because I threw the LA-EA4 adapter on the Sony A7R III, and this lens performed just as good as it did on the native Sony alpha bodies. So if you have the LA-EA4 adapter and a Sony A-series camera, all would be good with this lens. Very quickly, I'm just going to throw this on the tripod and show you guys the focusing speeds, maybe with the A7R III and the adapter and the native A77 II, and we'll just show you that very quickly. Then I just want to show you some 100% crops from this lens. Image quality wise, this is hands down my sharpest zoom. This thing is quite comparable, wide open at 2.8 to my Minolta 200, which is a fantastic, very sharp prime lens. Here we are on the LA-EA4 on the A7R III, guys. Was having issues with the LA-EA3, so like I said, it's a compatibility thing with the HSM motor here. So we're just going to use the LA-EA4 for the testing. A little slower than my SSM lenses, but more accurate. See that? We can even pick up that basketball net out there. Let's try that again. Very accurate. Here we are on the A77 II, which is native A mount. Silent and fairly quick. All right, let's jump over to the computer and I'll show you guys the 100% crops. I tried to shoot most of these at f2.8 and I've got some samples from both the A77 II and the A7R3, so let's take a look. Okay, here we are in Corel Paintshop Pro, and I just wanted to show you guys first of all the bokeh that can be captured with this lens. So these were shot at f2.8, and this one has foreground and background bokeh. So I just wanted to show you a fantastic lens for blurring out the background, and it is buttery smooth on this lens. Some of the best bokeh that I've seen. And we can show you guys, look at the sharpness as well. So we can come right in here, that's 200%, and I'll show you guys image information. That's shot on the A7R3. f2.8 at 200 millimeters. That is phenomenal sharpness right there. That's not 100%, guys. That's 200%. Very sharp lens. This one here, probably won't be able to see too much detail, but there's 200%. And this one here, we'll just look at some of the thread. Look at that, 200%. You can definitely see individual threads there. So fantastic sharpness and fantastic bokeh from this lens. I should mention, none of these images you're looking at have been altered in any way. These are all straight off the cameras. They say the sweet spot for this lens is 135 millimeters. So that's what I've done, is I just took a shot of the tree here with some fine detail on it. And let's come into 100%. So look at the detail in these needles and on that writing. I'll show you guys the image information. That's on the Mark III, A7R3. f2.8, 135 millimeters and 1600 ISO. So absolutely brilliant. And I did a comparison shot at 200 millimeters for you guys. And we'll notice that the little pine tree with the photo in it here is actually tailoring away from the camera. So your depth of field is going to be quite a bit thinner at 200. So really the only part that's in true focus is the 2008 down here. And that's actually in very nice shape at 200 millimeters. These needles as well right here. You can't complain about that. So that's 200 millimeters. I'll show you the image information. f2.8 at 200 millimeters. These next two photos were taken on the A77 II. So we're not going to get the detail that we did with the A7R3, but still fantastic. This is at 70 millimeters. There you see A77 Mark II. 70 millimeters, f2.8, ISO 400. And let's just zoom in on her eye. There's 200%, guys. And none of these have been sharpened or adjusted. That's 70 millimeters. And here we are at 200. Now I should mention that I find my lens, and I have not done micro focus adjust, I did some testing, and it seemed very good right at 0 on all three of my cameras. Of course the A7R3 you don't have to micro focus adjust, but the A99 and the A77 II were both pretty much bang on right at the 0 setting. And I noticed that my lens is a little bit sharper at 200 millimeters, and that's exactly what I want. I want mine set up so it's sharper at the long end, because that's probably where I'm going to use this lens. So I haven't bothered to change the micro focus adjust. I'll show you the image information. Sorry, A77 Mark II. 200 millimeters. So keep in mind, this is an APS-C camera, guys, so you're going to get a 300 millimeter field of view. f2.8, 1/50th of a second. So let's try, look at this, even sharper than at 70 millimeters. There's 200%. You can see individual eyelashes. This has not been post-sharpened at all. If we were to sharpen this, I would normally just run a high-pass sharpen, soft light at 70%. There's without, there's with. Not a lot of difference. And that's what you're going to find with lenses that are really bang on. You're not going to notice too much difference. There's without. There's with. So a little tiny bit sharper, but this lens is stellar right out of the gate. The only reason I'm throwing this image in here is to show that I work out. No, I'm just kidding. f2.8 again on the A7R III. 200 millimeters, 1/20th of a second. So using the in-body stabilization. I could not get a clear photo using the Sigma OS, but once I switched that off and went back to my in-body and turned it back on, this is the result I got at 200 millimeters, focusing on my glove. And you can see individual hairs again, individual fibers on my workout glove. That is fantastic. This lens is stellar. Now the last thing I can show you guys, what we should talk about is CA. And a good image to show you would probably be this one here. If we look around the edge of items in the foreground with a white background, you can see a very, very tiny bit of purple fringing here. It's so minuscule, you can't really see it until you zoom in to 500%. This lens is fantastic in terms of CA. And if we look at the bird, none. Pretty much none. So the DG coatings on this lens are doing their job. And again, I'll show you the image information on this one. That's the A7R III. 180 millimeters f2.8. So not a full review on this lens, guys, because there are tons of reviews out there. It's an older lens, but I just wanted to give it a ringing endorsement from Unfrequented World. Makes me wonder why I was so cheap and didn't just buy this lens, 8 years ago. I've made do with different iterations of the 7200. I actually own 4 lenses. Never been completely happy with any of them. This is the first one I am actually ecstatic. The previous version, which I showed you guys, I've shot many weddings with that. It's totally doable, but this is silent, it's fast, it's very sharp. That's the difference maker right here, is this lens quality at the lower apertures is just, I have nothing else that compares to it for a zoom. So absolutely, guys, with these prices and this alpha market right now, get out there and grab what you can for as cheap as you can. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next video.